This is the ultimate guide to mastering Stoicism in modern life. Just a quick note, in this episode, we are not going to be going over the history of Stoicism at all. We're just going to be talking about how to apply it in your daily life and for the 21st century. Now, really quickly, I do want to say that the goal of Stoicism, as defined, is to live a well-lived life by practicing virtues and living in accordance with nature, which is life in this case. In Stoicism, when they talk about nature, they talk about life. And the three main quote-unquote founders or practitioners of Stoicism are Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius. Now, the core ideas of Stoicism fall under three categories: desire, anger, and anxiety. As far as anger goes, a couple of really good quotes I have: any person capable of angering you becomes your master. Seneca saw the need to get even as absurd, as unnecessary. And in Stoicism, the big core ideas, like I mentioned, of anger, desire, and anxiety, is how to go about these things, how to live your life in accordance with the Stoic path, if you will. As far as anger goes, another good quote: the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury, Marcus Aurelius. So, in Stoicism, it is very important to note that anger for them is something that should be let go. So some people will say fight fire with fire, right? Some people think it's better to do the opposite, like just back off of them, and that's the mentality of a Stoic. They say for anger, you want to be able to let this experience go, all right? It's okay that the person performed this injustice, that this person did this negative thing, because it's more a reflection on themselves than it is of you. Now, desire. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves too much who is poor. I talk about this idea a lot on my podcast, but the goalpost always moves. Once you get one thing, you want to get the next. And then after you get that, you want to get the next. Oh, I want to make this much a month. Well, once you make that, now I want to make this much. Double that. Now I want to double that again. So the idea of being happy with what you have is huge in Stoicism. Now, you want to shoot for more, right? You want to be somebody who's always improving themselves, who's always renovating their internal dialogue, if you will, their mindset. But this idea that understand your path, the experiences you've had, and everything in between, because they have created who you are today. And if you can understand this idea, it's super relevant to the idea that you need to be happy with what you have as opposed to what you could have in the future. You want to shoot for it as a goal to have it in the future, but you want to be content. Naval Ravikant says, if you can't be happy with a coffee, you won't be happy with a yacht. Last one is anxiety. Don't let the future disturb you. You will meet it if you have to, with the same weapons of reason which today arm you against the present. One of my favorite things about anxiety is how we fear things in the future, but we always seem to figure them out. And I've even tried giving my friends advice about this in the past, and I've unintentionally quoted, paraphrase, I guess, Stoic beliefs. This quote I've had in my journal for such a long time, and I think it is amazing. And if I had the words, if I can memorize this to give this advice to my friends, I will. Forget the future. When and if it comes, you'll have the same resources to draw on. I think that is so cool because, we're always so worried about the future. Oh, how am I going to do this thing? How am I going to go up in front of all those people and speak? Well, if I told you you're going to have to do that today as opposed to in 5 weeks, it's going to be completely different, because if you have to do it today, you just figure it out. That's just how it works. And there's no easy way for me to explain this, but you have always figured out your problems when they've occurred because you just have the resources to draw on them and the ideas to go about the solutions that you've always done. You've never gained skills by being anxious for the future. Maybe you've had an excess of preparation because of it, but that preparation will not serve you if it was to happen right away. So if I was to tell you again, you have to speak right now, you don't have time to prepare. You just have to go, and you have to use your brain to go about solving this problem, which you've done probably before. And if you haven't, you'll figure it out. The people that fail the fastest, I think, are the people that succeed in the long run, because they just get those failures out of the way, whether, just fail early so you can fail fast. And just this idea that you'll have the same resources to draw on today than you did, yesterday is absolutely awesome, because of course there's going to be caveats to that. Of course, there's going to be ways around this. Just, it's such a freeing feeling knowing that if this problem happens, I'll deal with it like I always do. And with this mentality, I never worry about the future, because I'm always certain that I'll have the toolkit and the solutions to solve this problem. Another huge idea of Stoicism that I have written down right here is this idea of control versus not control. You need to be able to control the controllables and discard the non-controllables, because there's nothing you can do about it. Don't resent a fig tree for producing figs, right? You can't control it. Now you might be like, what do you mean? Like that makes no sense. Similarly, don't resent a bad person for doing bad things. That's who they are, and that's how they're made. The decisions they've made in their life have put them into the spot that they're in, and therefore they will become this person that they have in a way manifested for themselves in a negative manner. You can't control somebody for acting the way they do. And one of the things that I love about meditations, I actually have it right here. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's Marcus Aurelius' book of all of his notes. But one of my favorite things about this idea of control versus non-control is it's a very freeing feeling knowing you are not in control of other people. So therefore, if something happens from another person, so say another person does something to you, it's more a reflection on themselves than it is of you. And there's a really good quote in Meditations also. Try not to escape other people's faults. They are inescapable. Only try to escape your own. Which I think is very true. Like, you are in control of your problems. You can solve them, but you're not in control of other people's problems and other people's reactions to something in their life. In one of my previous episodes, I talked about the fact that negative people see the world through a negative lens and positive people see the world from a positive lens. So if the same situation was to happen to both of those people, they would both take different lessons out of it. If somebody spilled coffee on a negative person, the guy would get mad, the guy would get super upset, and he would say, oh my God, I love this shirt. Why? It always happens to me. I hate this, blah, blah, blah. Then a positive person would say, oh man, you're totally good. Don't even worry about it. This shirt didn't even matter anyway. And then they're going to laugh about it in the future. But other people that are negative, you cannot control, their reactions to something. For example, if you were to spill that coffee on somebody else, yes, you would feel bad about it. Their reaction to that is not your fault. If they get mad at you or they are, positive about the situation, it's not a hit of your character of who you are just because you made a mistake. So if you spilled coffee on somebody else, chances are you didn't do that on purpose. So not who you are to do that thing. So therefore, you are not a product of their emotion. In other words, what they say, how they react, is not a reflection of who you are. Oh my God, you spilled coffee on me. You are such an idiot. You are so stupid. Whatever. You're like, dang, I spilled coffee on him. I feel really bad, but I feel bad for him that was his reaction to it, that he really got so mad at me for doing that thing. I feel kind of bad for him. And if you do this enough, you're able to take these points of your life and take lessons away from the fact that people and how they react to you is not a reflection of your character. That's important. It's not a reflection of your character. It might have been a reflection of your actions in the moment, right? You spilled the coffee, that's an action. But it's not your character. It was just an accident. You stumbled, right? You spilled and you accidentally flung your cup and it got on somebody. It's a reflection of your action and not a reflection of your character. So therefore, it's not something that impacts you and isn't something that you should change about yourself, which I loved about, the whole idea of Stoicism. So I wrote down 3 practices to try today that can kind of get you started in this field of Stoicism, especially in the modern life. First one is focusing on the controllables. It's taking this idea and actually implementing it. And whether it be journaling, whether it be, reflecting on this thing, actually implementing this idea that if something bad happens to you, try to instantly snap and think about the fact that, okay, wait, this happened to me. It's not in my control. So if I remember what Elon was telling me, if it's not in my control, it's not my problem. So wait, this isn't something of my character that they're getting mad at me, right? And also something the other way around. If something was in your control and, you showed a negative side of your character, how can you fix that? It's okay. People make mistakes all the time. But the biggest difference is from the people who try to change themselves and make a difference than people who see that they lack in this certain category but never make an attempt to change. The second thing being negative visualization. So visualize bad things and how it could be good. So same thing as taking this idea and seeing, okay, how can I take away something positive from this? And if something bad was to happen to me, how can I turn it into a situation that it won't impact my day, my character, etc.? I had Chris Voss on the podcast, and he talked about the fact that if you ever get, out of character with somebody, out of line, you get super angry at them, and you remember and you feel bad, you can visualize yourself in that same situation and what you could have said differently, or if it's going to be more of a future thing, what you could say in order to not start an argument, right? If you know somebody has sensitive feelings on A, you're not going to bring up A because it's going to turn into a wildfire. But if you steer yourself away to B and they start to trust you more, they're like, okay, this guy kind of gets what I'm talking about. He understands it. That can help you. And the last thing is viewing setbacks as tools for growth. So this huge common idea that your life is the lessons that you take away from it, and you could be a good person if you start to realize that the lessons are in a positive manner for you. It's not a bad thing that they're happening to you, because if you're able to see them as good, they are good, and you become what you think about. If you're always thinking about how your life is so terrible, how it's so bad for you, nothing's going to change. But on the contrary, the people that are the happiest, they're always thinking, they have a lot of self-actualization, fulfillment. It's a compound. They're happier with things they get as they get it, and they realize that things that happen to them are bad. Adversity is a choice to grow, in my personal opinion, and I think there's a huge dichotomy between the people that choose to grow and go all out and the people that choose to fail because of it, and those people are on the bottom, and on the contrary, the people that choose to grow are on the top. Today, everything is super high-paced. I wrote this down in my notes. Today's everything is super high-paced, and everybody, seems to have anxiety. They seem to be anxious about something. And you need to be able to reframe your thoughts. One of the reasons that you're anxious about stuff, guarantee, is social media. It's making you anxious because it's making you think of a world that exists that's not reality. The news covers topics that make up less than 5% of all the crimes, but over 50% of the things covered in the news. Of course, it's going to make you anxious. You think that all of these bad things that they report happen so much more often than they actually do. So you're going to view the world through this type of lens. And that's how it is, right? The things you consume is what you become. And Chris Williamson said on a podcast with Derek Sivers, he said, things are not what they are. Things are how you see them as, and your perspective. So if your perspective is going to be, somebody always watches the news, always consumes this content, of course your perspective is going to be differed and just a little bit more cloudy than somebody who stays away from that stuff, and he can actually take away lessons on his own. You can't trust a TV, you can't trust the news to give you information about what is going on. You have to go out and experience it for yourself. And of course, you're not going to go overseas to where all these, potentially bad things are happening, but make your own opinions on stuff, see different sides, and also don't get in that situation to begin with. It's a loophole. I know for me, when I look at news, I become worse of a person. I've noticed that. So guess what? I don't consume the news. Everybody's anxious, social media. Everybody's anxious because of the news. Everything's happening so quick. I read a stat a long time ago that said tomorrow there will be more information out, like new information, than there was from, I think it was 1800 to like 1950, right? Just tomorrow. We are not used to, as humans, having all this information come to us this fast, so slow yourself down. Now, I want to leave with a quote, my personal favorite quote in all of meditations. It is, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." We care so much more about other people's opinions, even though we value ourselves more than others. So what's the problem? Right? You need to be able to let go and not care about people's opinions. Easier said than done. I've had a lot of episodes on it, so go and check it out. But Stoicism in the modern life is being able to take away lessons, see anger for what it is, a problem of other people's faults, desire something that you should have as contentment rather than jealousy, anxiety, not worrying about the future and trusting yourself to have the same resources to draw on when the problem occurs rather than worrying about it for the future. Having the controllables and non-controllables. You are not in control of other people's actions and characters, but you are in control of your own. So watch it very carefully. Seeing adversity as a chance to grow, the 3 practices that I mentioned, negative visualization, focusing on the controllables, and viewing setbacks as tools, and being able to slow yourself down and see the world for what it is, and seeing life for what it is, nature for what it is, right? As I talk about in the book. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions, make sure to comment them down below. Make sure to leave this podcast a 5-star review. Unless you're on YouTube, make sure to subscribe, follow, do whatever. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys next Tuesday.